Okay, we're back again. This week's video blog is going to be on the post-COVID impact to ERP and work management in the energy utility sector. With us today, we've got Matt Pfohl and Haranya Talukdar. So Haranya, why don't you get us started and talk a little bit about the ERP side of this?
Sure, thanks, Bill. Nice to meet you all today. Yeah, as you said, we have seen multiple phases, and I would say first is like stop everything. Second is I would say picking up small strategic projects as the things get a little bit more normalcy. Then last one, I would say it's kind of I would say the web tree. Is picking up full-fledged F&O, going into the more modernization, picking data and AI, AR. So those three waves I have seen in this as during COVID and post-COVID as well as it's picking up. So the stop, if I have to talk about the stop, when I started this, right after my start, the COVID stuck, and everything went onto like hold mode. Everything, like every customer I started interacting, they start panicking, cutting the span, IT budget, and all the projects kind of in a different shape. We learned that time. So that's about wave one I saw. I think I would maybe Matt has I'll pass it to Matt. I think he'll has some perspective about wave two.
So wave two, it's very similar to what we've seen in other disruptive markets. Obviously, this one was a little more extreme, I think, than many others. But after companies have really cut their costs as much as they can, and we saw some massive cutting, 80% of companies being cut down or EBITs being impacted greatly. Obviously, different industries were impacted stronger than others. But once you get past that kind of cost cutting, then you need to start looking at things like better cash management, things like better margin. Better, easier to work with your customers and vendors and so on. And so what we saw was companies really looking at, are there pieces and parts of ERP that we can start to modernize and replace because they were at risk as it relates to the current technology. And so we saw everything from literally starting with the revenue management and collections to fixed assets to, procurement, and really looking at helping companies, collect cash better, manage their billing process more effectively, and make it easier for and creating more what I would say controls or expenditures.
So the last wave I would say about full return to ERP project evaluations are when we are seeing the normal levels picking up, and companies we are seeing it not at the lift and shift, but they're looking at holistically the modernizations, including data elements, looking at the AI price as well, more of digital journey, full-fledged, and again, as we learned through this process, post the pre-COVID, what I have said is the traditional ERP will not be like a normal post-COVID world. Definitely companies would need to think on the, more of a transformational journey on the digital. More of transformation initiative on the ERP stays as I would envision.
Yeah, okay, I think so. Just quickly, Bill, I think we're sometimes out of these tough times. We become better business people, and the expectation around these type of investments and the value that we get in return. There's a much different way of thinking, and also. Really looking at what is the true impact going to be to the business. It's not just an ROI calculation based on our total cost of ownership over a period of time, but it's really looking at how do we differentiate the market as a result of this project? How do we ultimately improve our customer experience, or how do we really look at the business differently on, let's just say, how corporate services creates more value back to the different lines of business. So companies are really rethinking their business as part of these ERP transformations, more so than we've ever seen in history.
Great. So just to put it in perspective, COVID kind of hit us around the February-March timeframe. People stopped. Sounds like some smaller projects or some projects, maybe even projects as a result of COVID, right, became
Absolutely
pretty important. Yep. But here we are in January of 2021. And it sounds like you guys are saying companies are back and maybe even thinking more strategically in the way of technology.
100% agree.
Yeah. How's that impacted work management?
So, I think that how people are looking at work management is changed from historically, you saw a bit of a more best of breed type of approach of how they procured systems and so on. What you're seeing today is much more innovation led kind of, even if you just look at the ERP side of things and the languages that's in the ERP around work management, there's much more things like how do we, like augmented reality, mixed reality, stuff that you would never even imagine. So innovation is key to work management. Also really looking at how do we look at work management obviously has multiple threads. It could be your capital project lifecycle that you're managing or your plan work. It could be your emergency work, unplanned work, or even your outage or emergency type work if talking utilities. So we're seeing kind of a rethinking of work management from the standpoint of how do we think about it as just managing all types of demand, and how do we optimize, all resources, whether it be contractors, whether it be materials, whether it be our people in the field, and how do we ultimately collaborate better? How do we get more intelligence around to be more predictable around the work management work stream? And then kind of how do we properly prioritize where we should invest? Because it's an evolution from where we may be replacing some of these legacy systems that could be disruptive to just do a rip and replace. And where can we find, pockets of innovation? Whether it be Canvas apps, whether it be tools like RPA for robotic process automation. Again, similar to what we saw seen in the ERP side, it's about the innovation. It's about helping companies really prioritize so that we can identify where we're going to have the biggest impact, and then ultimately, what does that roadmap need to look like?
Great. Any closing thoughts, guys?
First of all, thanks for arranging it, and great to be connecting and sharing our perspective around this. How it's been. We have learned through last 12 months and how the journey has been. And I would hope in the coming 2021 would be a better world for everyone, and we things will get to more normalcy, and we see more of digital initiative picking up at the company, all level, industry, irrespective of any industry domain. So that's what I anticipate it's in coming time.
Great, for sure. Matt?
Yeah, I think the big thing is that we're seeing, and a lot of the conversations I'm having with CEOs and CFOs and CIOs is really around, long-term roadmaps and how do we build a strategy that, helps us get to an end goal. How do we know how to prioritize certain initiatives? And then, how do we, help change our culture's perspective on how we use technology, the importance of technology, and make it a bit more empowering to the individuals, regardless of where they're at in the organization, or even our partners and customers.
Great. Guys, thanks a lot for taking some time out of your week to spend with us. We'll nail you down next week on another new topic.
Sounds good, Bill. Thank you.